Good morning, Sangha. Thumbs up if y'all can hear us. Awesome. She do a
I
sound
can
check.
hear us. How about
Yeah.
now? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Everybody hear me? Okay, good.
I'm good. Come off on mute. For me, I just want to make sure we can hear you. You're still on mute.
Hi, Amy.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. Awesome. Everybody good? All right. Good morning, Sangha. How are y'all doing? Gasho.
Gotcha.
Happy Mother's Day to everyone. Again, it's always a pleasure to I just noticed when we scheduled this talk, it was just kind of like it was on Mother's Day. And we're so grateful to be here, to have this space, the feminine space and the feminine energy, and to bring the conversation
That's okay. Sorry about
this
that.
morning related on Mother's Day. But I want to kick it off. As we were prepping, there was something that came across my email this morning from Tricycle, and it's just to create the space of honoring mothers this morning. So I just want to kick it off with that. The mother has always held a special place in the Buddhist teachings. Buddhist tradition and folklore is full of divine maternal figures who offer compassion, loving care, and protection. From the radiant mother of the Prajnaparamita to Earth, Mother Goddess, and Prithvi to Tara, the mother of all Buddhists. This Mother's Day, we're celebrating the sacred role of the mother in Buddhist traditions as well as the mother figures in our own lives. However difficult and imperfect our relationships with them might be, may we honor those who give us life, knowing that there is no one right way to be a mother. So again, I know there are folks that are mothers, biologically mothers, and then the mother of choice. But again, we just want to honor our mothers this Sunday. So gosh, to all the mothers sending up good energy. So this morning, we wanted to kind of talk about. Can you hear me? I'm good.
Yeah, but you're breaking up.
I'm breaking up.
Garbled.
Am I garbled? Is that better? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. The mic was too low apparently. A lot better. Awesome.
Yeah, it wasn't mic placement. It was like the audio version of pixelating.
Oh, not good. So let me know. Just kind of wave if we go there again. We don't want to pixelate everything.
Yeah.
So we're back to having a community practice discussion, and normally those are on second Sundays, but we've had Ongo, Priest and Ongo. We've had a lot of things going on, guest speakers, etc. So I'm glad we're actually rotating. Is it still pixelated again?
Well, whatever you just touched, it changed.
How's that? Okay, it's got to be the
Don't
antenna. I'm not
touch that.
touching the antenna. So we're back to having the community practice discussion, and those are always where I think the last time we had this was with first, like right after January 6th, and everything had just blown up, and we came together as a community, and it just so happened that we had that space to be able to have the conversation as a community. So we're back again to having the community practice discussion, but I guess since we haven't had one in such a long time, I wanted to kind of circle back, like, what does that really mean? Like, community practice co-leaders. Chishiki did it for, I don't know how long.
I don't know.
Forever?
A couple years.
Yeah, a couple of years.
Yeah.
So he is trying to hand the baton slowly over to me.
We already did that. We're just pretending like that didn't already happen.
Yeah.
And today it's official.
Right. So what is like community practice leaders? And essentially, when Chi was handing the baton over to me, he said, I think you're, kind of already doing what community practice leaders do.
Mm-hmm.
And, the Sangha for me is a very near and dear jewel to my heart. So I was okay with kind of taking some additional responsibilities on for the Sangha. But essentially what we do is just we hold the space for the community to be able to have the discussion of things that arise. And also we help the board, do the programming, and we also do the emails for introduction sessions. We make sure people are welcomed and feel welcomed. And also if things come up where you want to have a discussion about things that are arising within the community, we also do that as well. So as we are officially kind of kicking that back off, I just kind of wanted to circle back because we've had some new members that have come in to the Sangha to figure out what is community practice. And I just want to make sure that, you kind of understand what community practice leadership is and, what we're here for. And please, if there's any topics of conversation that you want to see in the near future, do not hesitate to reach out to us at ASZCinfo@gmail.org. So we can actually kick off those conversations in the community. So again, welcome again. So today, I thought what I would do today is to talk about what cultivating our practice is. What is, how do we cultivate our practice within the community? And when I was talking to Sensei about what things can I talk about related to cultivating practice, the things that came up for me was what he always kind of calls the cradle of ASZC style. What we do here, it's Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And what we'll do is talk about what Buddha practice is, what Dharma practice is, and what Sangha practice is, and what that really looks like, from foundationally from a way that ASZC, presents it. But again, it's different for everyone. Everybody's practice evolves organically over time. And when I was preparing for this, what I did was also went back to some of our lineage teachers, that what they said about what Buddha practice was, what Sangha practice was, and what Dharma style practice was. And during that time, it was interesting to kind of see and hear what some of our lineage ancestors talked about, what that looks like and how to support that along the way. So what we'll do is talk about that, each of the specific jewels, what that looks like in our community. Then we'll come back to look at what some of our lineage teachers, what that came up for them, and then have a conversation about, because we have practitioners that have been practicing for a while. So we want to get some feedback on what that means in your day-to-day practice. And also, what are some opportunities within a community that are presented for each of those different phases. So let me start off by really going into what Sensei says. Hojo Sensei always brings it back to the sitting, the Buddha Dharma practice as, if you sit still enough, long enough, things arise. And that's been I've heard him say that a lot. That's like his tagline, right? And we're actually working within the communications team to actually create a shirt that actually says that, because he says that so often. But I want to start off with what Sensei says about what our practice is. And this actually comes from the original Frontier. And it's that chapter on Zen of the people, by the people, and for the people. So Sensei says, this is on page 225, setting the ASZC's path. Zen prescribes a balanced approach of life, maintaining a positive relationship to Zen Sangha as well as secular society. Meditation of thought as of Buddha practice, of study as of Dharma practice, and of community service as Sangha practice. Benefits of a well-rounded practice include positive holistic effects on our personal worldview of behavior and our potentially public health and happiness. These stems from the balanced program of meditation, study, and participation within the Zen community. We promote studying these teachings and their meaning, Dharma, but above all, practicing meditation itself, Buddha practice, preferably under the supervision of an experienced teacher. So Hojo really, throughout his book, which is I've been finding interesting, I would kind of been weaving a lot of his reading. It's not like I would read it start to finish. It's like I pick it up, I look at what's kind of coming up for the week, and then I'll go to a section in this book, and that's been really kind of helpful for me in my own personal practice. So let me pause there. Again, as tools and resources, we have the Sensei's new book, The Original Frontier, has been a really good resource. And I know he's been encouraging us to kind of check it out. I think Kuwa-san is going to be, that study group on Tuesday is going to be actually focusing on it. And I think it starts in June, if I'm correct. So that's an opportunity to be able to interface with that as well. I do want to mention also what Matsuoka Roshi said in the Makurai. He says the historical Buddha became enlightened through the discovered enlightenment, or the light in himself, by sitting a length of time up under a tree, contemplating the nature of existence of his own being. He became aware of his own Buddha nature and through the existence of sitting. So, for me, we always go back to, even in our book club, we always come back to Shikantaza and Zazen. That's our primary practice in our lineage. And I think of all Zen lineages, it always goes back to our own personal experience with sitting practice and what arises through that. So when we think about sitting, we have the introduction on Wednesdays and we teach people how to sit and when to sit, and we let that kind of arise. So when I first started working with Sensei, I was like, well, how often should I sit? Because I had been practicing for a long time, and I had a consistent sitting practice, but I just always want to approach things from the beginner's mind. And so for me, it was important to kind of refresh myself on like, well, when should I sit? How should I sit? And where should I sit? And the thing that always comes back to me is when I sit is just to be consistent, whatever that is. And I sit in the mornings and in the evenings, but again, when someone's first starting out, we encourage them just to sit whenever they can. And the thing is, people always ask me, well, where do I sit? And, when do I sit? And I'm just kind of like, well, it's important to just find a space. And Matsuoka goes back to saying, just select a space that is quiet, not too hot, not too cold. Sit in meditation with comfortable clothing. Do so either not when you're too hungry, too full, and choose a time when your mind is not truly unruly and distracted by pressing obligations. Well, lately that's always. For me, I've always been like, everything's kind of pressing. Even in the morning, I feel like my mind's like a snow globe where, it's like shaking up something. It just depends on what is going on throughout the day or throughout the night. Sometimes it takes me longer to settle in the morning than it does in the evening after work. So I always found that helpful to come back to the essence of why I'm there and just allowing the body to settle in. So, any other thoughts on that as far as like from a sitting practice?
Well, I think mornings have probably changed a lot in the last, since smartphones came along. We used to wake up with an alarm clock and then kind of, wipe the sleep out of your eyes and maybe go take a shower before the day really began. And now everybody wakes up with their phone, which is begging you to check your email and do all kinds of other things, which is probably the snow globe you're talking about in the morning for most people. Yeah.
And one of the things that I try not to do is not grab my phone the first thing in the morning. It's hard not to want to see what's going on. Is stuff blowing up, etc. So, and that's one of the practices that I've tried, even when we get up to sit in the morning, is not to try to look at the phone. Just try to start my morning out in the practice of meditation and zazen. Thanks so much. And really keep me honest on time, because we have Muman coming at the end, really with Sangha Practice, talking and giving us an update on the Gasho newsletter. So thank you for that, Suki. The other thing that arises for me is how we sit has really changed, because I think the pandemic has really changed the way and the opportunities for us to sit. As ASZC talks about, starting to try to reopen its morning sitting, there's a lot of pushback at being able to practice online, but I feel like that technology and the space in which we practice has changed. The pandemic has really opened us up for the how we practice. I know when we were in book club, we wanted to get it online, but we had a lot of kind of pushback. Well, it's going to change the way, the environment, the space. Well, it didn't really. It just expanded the opportunity for us to be able to practice and what that looks like. So again, Mark Sayu, who actually is our book leader, he gave me a comment back after we started doing book club online, that he really appreciated that we were able to maintain the space. And even when we were meditating in the morning, some people you'll see, just like we have online, will turn off their camera, and some people will turn on their camera just to be able to feel like they're sitting with folks. So that has actually shifted the way we actually practice in an expanded way. So let me pause here. Again, we want this to be kind of like a collaborative discussion. So I just want to open it up. And I know we have Ungun, who's in the Hummer for Brown Robe. We also have Fusatsu as well. And would like to hear from people that are, at various practice stages along the path about sitting. Like, do you find that sitting in the morning is better or in the evening? I would just love to hear about, some of your, practices and what has, worked well for you, and what continues to arise in your day-to-day practice, if we could allow that space and time for that.
Or maybe how your sitting has changed during the pandemic. Maybe
yeah,
also.
Definitely. So again, as always, please, if you have questions or comments, come off of mute, and I'll check Facebook, etc. while y'all are on. Cosette, I see you coming off of mute.
Well, it's been a common feature of my life for many years now that I was traveling for business. I had, grown children, grandchildren, a child in middle school and now high school. So my schedule was pretty erratic. But what I found to be very helpful is I have a dedicated duffel bag where I have a folding meditation bench. I have a blanket for if it's cold or to go underneath me or whatever, and some incense, just my little portable meditation kit. And that just lives in my truck. And so wherever I go, I have that with me. So there are ways to adapt to your particular circumstance. And that's a way that I've adapted that's worked very well for me.
Mhm. Yeah, and Cosette's, I wish you're not around. Are you in a space to where you can show that meditation bench that you showed me? Cosette's not. Yeah.
Well, this is, let's see. So that's one, you can see my pile of cushions there. Yeah, that's a bench very similar to what you have in the Zendo there. And that's where I normally sit. And then my duffel bag's in the truck.
Okay. That's awesome. Thank you, Cosettes, for sharing that. Cosettes and I are actually co-communication team chairs, and we are often trading ideas about what spaces for meditation, how it works, etc. So it's actually an opportunity to. He also has something called, what's the bench that you have that's you fold? What's the name of it? The one that it's kind of like you can adjust it. It's a cloth seat on it.
I don't remember the name of it. So if you want to see it, you just give me a second and I'll pull them out.
This is a show and tell. But as you see, as Coach is traveling, I used to travel a lot with my job as well. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be so doing it a certain way or being in a certain place or having a certain cushion. I find that helps release we're attached to our practices as well. So yep.
So in previous years, I used this Seiza bench, right? Which was, I still use sometimes, I like a lot. But I had another knee surgery a couple of years ago, so I was less limber. So I got this. This is the folding bench I think you were referring to just now. So it's available from still sitting.
Yep.
Yeah, so that one I use quite a lot. But when I was flying quite a bit, I used the inflatable. This is just a beach ball inside a Zafu cover that I could uninflate and put in my luggage and take with me. So I've sat on that many, many, many times in hotel rooms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the first things, and I still struggle with this a lot, even when I would go off on a retreat, it would just be one leg, my right leg. I would sit on that nerve and it would just eat me up, and I'd have to really work with my mind and what arose with that. So one of the things I'm glad Cosette showed a number of different sitting benches, because I switch up when I have like longer retreats. I tend to switch which cushions or benches that I use, so I'm not like putting the pressure on that one nerve all the time. So those are just things that are, you do the same thing, Cosette?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, those are things that you learn over time, especially when you're sitting in for long periods of time in one space and looking at the wall. So, I mean, it's all about working with your mind and what arises, but you don't have to necessarily be in excruciating pain either. So what did Sensei always say? This is not a marathon of like, it doesn't have to be painful. So anyone else comments about sitting practice over the years or how your sitting practice has changed during COVID? Ungun.
I have to stop and think about unmuting. Well, my advice on the subject would be don't get attached to a particular schedule. Your environment will continue to change as well as your attitude. And if you think you're just going to come up and this is my sitting schedule and it's going to work, you're probably going to get surprised. I've tried many different approaches. I've tried one point, I was trying to sit 5 times a day, 15 minutes a time. Oh, that didn't work too well either. But experiment around with what works for you and don't get hung up on having to have an exact schedule. Do get hung up though on sitting.
Yes.
That's, as long as you sit, but if you don't feel like it when you first get up, then do it after breakfast or whatever works for you. Thank
you so much for that, Angan. Yeah, it's always comes back to us releasing the attachment to the way we think it should be and working with what comes up as it does, just like with COVID. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The toys, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Move on.
Well, I don't know about anybody else, but if you've ever had the lovely experience like I have of having your legs fall asleep in the middle of a session or something like that and embarrassing yourself in front of all of your peers, like going down in a heap. COVID has been amazing because I have really experimented a lot with my sitting posture, because I can fall on my face in private now. And it's actually been really useful because I also have, sort of structural issues with my pelvis that make it difficult to sit in one position for any length of time. And so it's actually been really lovely because I feel like I have more freedom to experiment. And, when the day comes that we may all be together again, it'll be nice to be able to sit and, have, I would say, more body confidence. It was something that I was really nervous about after I fell on my face. Surprise, surprise. So that's been a really nice thing of just having the privacy to experiment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Thank you, Muman.
I'll say something.
Yeah.
I think, it's one of the things that I never realized the importance of was actually having a dedicated space, to set up your little meditation cushion and everything else. But then there's also an attachment that can come with setting up that space. And like Cosette was talking about, I also had a little bag that I had in the back of my car. And then I became sort of attached to that stuff to meditate. And, if you forget that, or it's not in your car and you end up in a hotel room, I will say a really comfortable place to meditate if you find that you don't have your stuff is sitting on a bed with all the cushions of the pillows on the bed in a hotel room tend to compress really well. So you usually have to use like 4 of them to be equivalent to a zafu. But if you jam all those and then the bed sort of comes up to meet your knees, and it's probably one of the most comfortable places to sit ever. I don't know that anybody else would recommend that. Maybe it's too comfortable, but I've had some good sessions when I had forgotten everything and ended up in a hotel room.
Nice. Thank you. I was trying to I asked Suki to lift the camera up so Chi's head wasn't cut off at the top. So it's always good when your head's not cut off at the top. So
Couldn't see it, didn't know it. I didn't feel like my head was cut off.
Yeah. Yes. Chi. Suki. Suki. Yeah. Oh yeah, buddy. Sorry, buddy.
Hey guys, two comments. One, I bought a bench. Let me see if you see my little Coleman bench there.
Ew, yeah.
I was looking for a bench that's a little $20 Coleman, this fold up seat. I was looking for something I could get down by the lake and just to mix things up a little bit and use, and it works pretty well. I'd like for it to be a little higher, but it's good. The other thing I learned was I like to meditate. When I first started, I could only meditate if I meditated first thing in the morning before I checked my phone and email, because once my head started going, I could not do anything about it. And I just couldn't sit. Then as time went on, and this is something I've done recently, I just set a time every 2 hours, like 8, 10, 12, 2, 4, 6, 8. And I have a little reminder pop up on my phone. And if I can, and if it's a good time to do it, I'll stop and meditate for 20 minutes. And if it's not a good time, I won't. I don't make a religion out of it. That's something I must do. But that really has worked well for me to take meditation from being something I do and check off the list to something that's become more and more an intricate part of my life. Mm-hmm. So that was a really, really big change for me. And I don't make it a religion. Some days I get no extra, sits in, and some days I get 3 or 4, mm-hmm. But Most of the time, on average, 1 or 2 out of the whole day, you know, so, and it really, really works well for me. But it's integrating sitting as more of just a part of my life, not something I must do today. And, you know, I've completed it kind of thing. So great conversation. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. And one of the things that I keep hearing arise in everything that you're saying, and it is basically integrating it and working with it with our own and with ourselves, not being so attached to something so rigid, which I tend to want to attach. My mind constantly wants it to be a certain way, and I'm just like, oh, it's doing it again. There it goes. Like, but just being flexible and being really buoyant with, you know, your practice. And with everything that I'm reading and everything I'm studying, and even in my personal practice, the more I'm able to do that, the less stressed and less tense I tend to be. So I think that's one of the reasons that attracted me to Buddhism in general. Is it's all about our personal experience with it, working with it, and as it relates to our own selves. But I can't not have an opportunity to be able to tell you with the community, because we have to bring it all the way back to the community practice and what's offered. We're blessed with having an opportunity, even during COVID, to be able to sit together in the mornings. We have morning meditations now. We're getting really close to opening the Zendo back up in the mornings, but we have our AM sits and we have our evening sits. And we just this past Saturday had an opportunity with Just Sit Saturday. So that's every month, second Saturdays, and Suki usually kind of helps DOG with that, where we have an opportunity to have an extended sit. Again, hopefully we'll be able to get back into the Zendo, but right now we're able to offer that online. So I always have to bring it back to, well, what are the opportunities to be able to practice, to do this particular practice in the community? Another thing that we have available is, and I think a lot of people take advantage of Dokusan with Hojo Sensei, or some of our other brown robes, because stuff comes up in your practice that you may want to bounce off, you know, someone that's been further along the path than us. Just like with, you know, the benefit that we're having here, even within the Sangha, it helps to hear, you know, other people's experiences. However, that does not replace your own personal experience, but it does help to know that you're not alone in the things that arise in your day-to-day practices. Yes, yeah, Katsuyu.
I like the way you say that. Well, yes, I think Zazen is the foundation of my practice. There's no replacement for it, but I want to put a good word in for walking meditation or standing meditation, especially as I've gotten older and slowed down. I really appreciate going, and I've seen, Fusatsu, your Facebook postings, so I know you're into this too, but going for walks in nature and just appreciating the other beings and the other world around us and practicing with that as well, you know, remaining mindful, remaining in the space of meditation. So just another way of practicing.
Oh yeah.
Thanks.
What do you mean, Katsuyu? We get older. We have to. Yeah, I love that part where you're saying, yeah, because sometimes when we're in sesshin, I'm just waiting for the bell to walk. Like I just, like Muman, you are not alone when I have almost fallen. I've fallen, like I've just had to stand still at times because I just know if I take another step, I'm gonna fall. So yeah, you're not alone with that. But yeah, I mean, thank you so much, Katsuyu, for bringing that up. I do a lot of walking practice, and because I do a lot of like work sit practice, like working on my butt all day. So I find it very, very helpful. Nature and walking definitely pulls us out of, it lets us be able to interact, like you said, with our surroundings. And I feel like in our practice that, you know, this has helped me along the way to be able to be more present in my body. So even when you're walking and you're breathing, that's a part of walking meditation as well, you know, being aware of the breath, as well as when you're walking. I do want to kind of tout, we have some tools for people that, again, I always constantly try to approach things with a beginner's mind. And I want to do a shout out to Cosettes and Inga, because they've allowed us to really build our online resources, specifically because of COVID. We have again, people that are wanting to still interact with our community and not having the ability to try to get to us in person, has been an opportunity. So what we've done is put a lot of our tools and resources online up under the ASZC practice or education section. So we do have links to Katsuyu's point about, the walking, just a reminder of how to walk, how to sit, chair sitting. Again, not being so attached to wanting to get into the lotus position, the half lotus. I mean, I've known people that it's a thing. They have to have that the legs crossed, everything is like, I'm just like, that's an attachment, but oh well, I mean, so, but we do have those tools and resources out there available for folks, just as a reminder, to help support your practice. So any other comments on the kind of the Dharma piece of the practice? Excuse me, not Dharma, but the Buddha practice. I'm getting ready to go into the Dharma section. Awesome. All right. So study as Dharma practice. Again, and I'm going to go back to, I always start off with Hojo Sensei. And again, his book is really, some of his stuff in his book just kind of hits me like, I'm like, oh, this is what we're kind of talking about. But Hojo basically writes in the Original Frontier, written documents of Buddhist teachings preceded the assimilation of his practice in China, Japan, Far East, etc. It is much easier to distribute documents even when laboriously copied by hand than to sit in a one-on-one mentoring relationship necessary in genuine Zen training. The Zen practice consists primarily of direct experience in Zazen and only secondarily from a written record. I love that as far as like what Sensei says, but Kongo Roshi is hilarious. I mean, as I get prepared for these talks, or one of the things that I read from Kongo Roshi was Dharma study is in the Diamond Sword. He's got a little book called The Diamond Sword, and this was right at the very beginning. He says not to concern ourselves with a lot of reading. I was just cracking up when he was reading. I was just like, woo, okay. He says not to concern ourselves with a lot of reading. He says reading are just remnants. Somebody forgot to flush the spiritual toilet. What you are reading is what someone else left behind. And I just didn't want to get too much into the visual with that. It blew me up with the spiritual toilet. But in Zazen, you learn to read your own book. And I was just like, wow. And I don't take that as him saying that it's Dharma study is not good. To study the Dharma and to read the Dharma is not a good thing. Because for me, Dharma practice is very helpful. I mean, it's very helpful for me from a referential point of view to see what the elders and people that have been studying the Dharma have said. And then I take it back, is that true for me? And if it's not, that's okay, because I love the fact, I think you and Carola, you were talking about a couple of weeks ago, you have to, in Cosette's from your talk last week, it's an experiment. Is that really resonating with you? Now you may read something today and it resonate with you today, but 10 years down the road, you'd be like, oh, not so much. But I mean, I think that's the beauty of Dharma practice. It's really having the opportunity to see if that works for you personally or not. And also it pushes you out of your comfort zone too. And because when you're reading Dogen, I'm just like, it's just so over my head. But then when I hear like an Ungun or Cosette's or someone break it down, then I'm like, oh, okay, I can kind of get on board with that. But again, for me, I look at the Dharma like a flashlight or a lighthouse. It kind of, it sustains us, in the midst. Sometimes when we can't see it for ourselves, we know that there's some type of understanding that's available. May not be available where we're at right now, but I mean, along the way, it arises, it evolves, it unfolds. So again, I'm going to leave it right there with the spiritual, the toilet and everything, but I just want to open it up for discussion. Yeah.
I was just going to say, and things change over time, right? So in the beginning, when there's no written documents, you had to go to a monastery and become a monk and study under a teacher. Mm-hmm. And then eventually written documents become available. And, there's still pointings, just like talking can be a pointing, right? Mm-hmm. And then eventually, you look at even the modern day where we have Sangha practice that's gone from a lay practice here in the center to a lay practice online. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of changes over time. Mm-hmm. but you kind of have to move and adapt and not become attached to whatever way of practice that you know.
Moving and adapting,
Yeah.
becoming attached. Yeah.
I think that's, yeah, anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's what you just said. I just said it again.
Kinda. Yeah, it's good. Repetition is a good thing. Yeah. What other?
Repetition is a good thing.
It is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, I have Cosettes and then Ungan.
I see what you did there. I find it very useful just seeing things from other perspectives. Many of us, we listen to our talks and you can hear us referring to, we're blessed with a broad variety of teachers across time and space with different styles. We hear people referring to Thich Nhat Hanh, Brad Warner, Norm Fisher, Stephen Batchelor, and we could go on and on and on. And they have very different styles and approaches. And at various times I have resonated with, okay, I really get it now, the way they said it. So I think that's very helpful for us to break out of our own mindsets, have somebody else's perspective help us see things from a different angle and open our awareness a bit. So that's one of the great values I find in Dharma study.
Mm-hmm. Ungan.
Let me get unmuted here. A good story about reading. When I was up in Atlanta recently, some guy, Bryan, somebody took me to dinner, and he had been reading this book by, it was actually a book on 10 steps to achieving something in Tibetan Buddhism. And the point he made was in this book, it talks about how essential that it is to get focused before you start your shikantaza, and getting focused through counting the breath. Now, we all know that, and it's the easiest thing to do. But after I took the book and I reread that thing, and sure enough, it really hit home. I had, over the last few years, gotten so overconfident, I guess, or so ingrained in my practice. When I would count my breath, I would count to 10 and back to 0. Got that out of the way. Now let's sit. Getting focused before you do shikantaza is so important. And from reading that chapter, in the last couple of weeks, I have rededicated myself to trying to count my breath to the exclusion of all else for a minute and a half or 2 minutes, which is tremendously hard to do. But I found it's really reinvigorated my sitting and gotten me doing a lot better with my shikantaza. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Bryan.
Thank you, Ungan.
Yeah, thank you.
Regarding the reading, I find maybe this might be parallel to like a diagnosis sort of like what somebody may be going through in regards to like mental illness, etc. I think it's easier to work with that. Am I good on hearing?
Can y'all hear him?
I can't get anything.
Can you hear me now?
Condenser mic isn't condensing.
I was saying, I think diagnosing what somebody's mind is going through is easier to have a conversation and know where somebody is at. Much like the DSM, etc. Once you're able to put a name to it, it's easier to have those conversations and to work with that. And I think for me in practice, reading the literature of others, the leavings of Zen masters, even just like the more ancient ones, etc., they are able to articulate subtleties of what's going on in practice, so that I think it helps bring things out more to the surface. And so I think we say in Zen, or at least Soja maybe, you can't read something that you don't already know in practice. Like if you can read gobbledygook and it just doesn't mean anything to you unless you've gone through it with your practice itself. And I think using reading as like a foil or like a litmus test to see what's going on there, I think is very helpful. It's not the answer, but I do think, I mean, we all in this room probably read Zen texts all the time. I think I think we get something out of it.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's my comment.
Thank you, Suki.
And then Shikaku.
Well, there's an old saying that when the student is ready, the words make sense.
I like that. Gee.
I was going to say, with regard to Suki's comment, you know, it's interesting in book club to go back and reread books that you've read before at a different stage, you know, so you're 2 years further down or 3 years further down, and you read the stuff. I tend to mark in the margins and write little marginalia and stuff like that in the books, which it's funny when I read it the second time, those things still seem important to me, but I pick out other things that I didn't even see the first time. I just read straight through. So I tend to gain more, you know, if I had a pencil, I don't think I would erase anything. I just keep adding more and more to the pages, but
Until you have to buy a new book and then everything's
Eventually.
highlighted and highlighted and yeah.
well, the good news is I'm getting old enough now that my books are starting to fall apart completely, so I may have to buy new ones again anyway. Oh, I don't have to buy that one because I bought so many copies of it for you.
That's an inside joke between Shikak and Chi on one of Shikaku's favorite books that we ever went to a book club.
Book from another tradition also.
Yes, John.
Thank you, Ungen Bill Mayhew. You bring up something that that I'm currently working with that I would request from all of you any comments or feedback that you think might be helpful. When I sit, I have a kind of a tension, a kind of a bipolar tension that looks like this. I sit intending to be curious and notice what's coming up, what's arising, particularly internally. It's a period that I set aside to, for lack of a better word, become a little more familiar with what's coming up and get to see that maybe a little differently. At the same time, I was just reminded again that I don't want to just drift and flow totally unanchored. So there's also this desire to bring a certain level of discipline and focus to the practice. That's the cognitive dissonance, to open to whatever arises and be curious about that and getting to know myself in a way that's different from when I'm doing day-to-day activities. And at the same time, wanting to bring a level of discipline and focus to my practice. Does anyone want to offer feedback on that tension of discipline, focus, and flowing freely?
We got Chishiki and then I'll let Ungun, because I know you asked for Ungun too. So yes, Chi.
I'll let Ungun correct anything that I say wrong. Oh, is that feedback?
That's okay. Go ahead.
So I actually gave this book to Ungan because one of the things that I really liked about the book is it described this tension between dullness and excitation when you're sitting in meditation. And I don't know, when you say sort of flowing with it, I think there's sort of two ways that I think about that. One of them is kind of getting carried away by your thoughts, and the other one is kind of falling into dullness or falling into kind of spacing out during meditation. And I think, like Ungan, I noticed that I'd gotten pretty lazy in my practice and that I had spent a lot of time sort of spacing out, right? And it felt very relaxing, but I'm not sure. I mean, I'm actually positive that I wasn't doing shikantaza at all. And I thought it's nice to talk about this balance between excitation, being like the monkey mind, the hyperactivity of your mind, and sort of, and then the dullness being kind of falling into sort of being sleepy and sort of just kind of zoning out. And that there's this edge to kind of, that you want to kind of get on, that's kind of between dullness and excitation, where you're not so tight trying to stay focused, but you're also not so relaxed that you're sort of spacing out and kind of, and in that book, he talks a lot about, in the book that I gave Ungan, he talks a lot about developing, almost like developing the muscle of vigilance, which was this idea of sort of having enough energy in your meditation that you're paying attention to what's going on and not getting fused with the thinking, right? So the thinking kind of comes up, and I think two things can happen. Whether you're in excitation, you can get sort of pulled away by the monkey mind, and if you're in that dullness, you can kind of get pulled away by that sort of almost semi-dreamy mind and not even know that it's happened. And I think that at least in my mind, and you all please correct me, because this is speaking from a Tibetan tradition, but I think that my point in giving the book to Ungan is I think that there's something to bring into our Buddhist tradition about that, because I think that we lose that vigilance, or that ability to sort of pay attention to what's going on and not being fused with it, but actually seeing it as it comes up. Right. So if a thought comes up and it kind of drags you away, whether you're dull and sort of sleepy and kind of dreamy, or whether you're excited and the monkey mind kind of pulls you somewhere, you have a thought, and instead of thinking, well, I'm sitting here in meditation, I'm paying attention to thoughts, you are that thought just goes. And I think the vigilance is really important. And that's, again, splitting that sort of edge. And I don't know if that gets at what you're talking about, but that's the main reason I gave that book to Ungan, because I thought, wow, that's a really interesting way to look at it. And I, like Ungan, have sort of dedicated myself back to counting the breath again, because I realized, man, I got a lot of work to do. I have gotten really lazy. And I sort of feel like if you can't count your breath for a whole session without getting lost, you probably don't have any reason to drop counting the breath just yet. So I don't even do it for the first, minute and a half. I actually count my breath to 10 over and over and over again during a whole sitting session now. And I sort of started to do that. And I figure once I no longer get lost 30 times in one sitting session, then it's time maybe to drop the counting, because I think you're developing that muscle of vigilance, but we're getting kind of into the minutia.
Yeah, sure.
So I'll let it go.
Thank you.
Ungan?
Thanks.
I might say about that book, it was 10 steps to reaching perfection in the Tibetan tradition. Anything beyond phase 1 and 2, you need to be a full-time Tibetan monk in a monastery. So, all you need to do is read phase 1 and 2. You don't need to worry about this unless you're ready to check into the monastery. Other than that, I don't have anything to add. Bryan, I think that you're right on with what you said there.
I think I told you when I gave you that book, the good news is you only have to read the first 25 pages, because beyond that, it doesn't include any of us.
Yeah. Again, as y'all know, most of y'all know, Tibetan practice is near and dear to my heart. And one of the things that I found beneficial about Tibetan practice are they give you a lot of tools and resources to be able to practice with. And you are right. I mean, I think, John, one of the things that you said is I'm noticing. That's key. I'm noticing, what my mind is doing. But again, as Chishiki said, is noticing is different from like holding on to it and going down the road and around the grandma's house with the letting yourself be drug out with it. So, I mean, it's amazing for practitioners that have been sitting for a long time to actually tighten back up your practice, because that's a trap. It's a trap for folks that, we got this. I've been meditating for 20 years and so what? So we still have the same stuff that arise in our day-to-day practice. Also, for me, the things that come up, just like what you're talking about, it's very obscure and it sneaks in. It's very sneaky about that. And for me, it's almost like when you're bringing it back to beginner's mind, is the beginners are totally getting it with the tools and the resources. They're like, oh, I can just like do this when we come back. And but we're so arrogant about practice at times. We're just like, may or may not notice. It may take us longer. So that's something, I'm so glad you brought that up, John, that arises as we sit for extended periods of time. And again, just something to watch with, like, again, getting to know yourself again, like Dogen said, the way is being able to know yourself. But the key word that you said for me was notice. And that's a good thing that arose for you. Awesome. I'm watching my time here move on. I'm still got you on my mind. So let me roll straight into the Sangha practice, because I want to be able to give Muman some time to be able to talk about the Gasho newsletter, which is a part of Sangha practice. And I was so happy that she was like, oh, can we talk about the newsletter and give an update? And I'm like, this goes right into what we're going to be talking about. So community service as Sangha practice. And, y'all, the ones that really know me know that I love the third jewel. The third jewel for me is near and dear to my heart. And essentially it encompasses the many forms of the Zen community. It's a place where we are able to actually work with what we study and be able to interact together and learn from each other. So someone mentioned Thich Nhat Hanh, and actually, I love something that Thich Nhat Hanh wrote back in the Lion's Roar in like 1985. And he says that it's called the next Buddha may be the Sangha. The Buddha Shakyamuni, our teacher, predicted that the next Buddha may be Maitreya, the Buddha of love. We desperately need love, and the Buddha's teaching we learn that is love born from understanding. The willingness to love is not enough. If we do not understand, we cannot love. The capacity to understand the other person will bring about acceptance and loving kindness. It is possible that the next Buddha will not take the form of an individual. The next Buddha may take the form of a community practicing and understanding, a community practicing mindful living, and the practice can be carried out as a group, a city, or as a nation. So when I read that article, I have that in my practice book. Because as you know, there's Buddhists, we have like 10, 20 books by our bedside, and God knows how many books, in our bookcase. But again, I so love Dharma study too. But again, for me, COVID has been an example of how the Sangha has been able to extend the practice for us and be able to support. The Sangha, I came out of a community where, again, the Sangha basically, was the place where we were, we practiced. It was such a strong part of my practice. And I think at any community, you can see the teaching. It's the living teaching. It's the teaching aliveness. And even as we are not able to be together physically, we are able to be together yet and support one another. So I have always really leaned into the Sangha for support and to bounce things off. Some of my Sangha brothers and sisters, Lord knows, they get calls at 5 or 6 o'clock at night and they're like shaking their head. But Sangha Sangha supports in many different ways. It's the committees that we're on. It's showing up. It's Suki providing us tea. It's Chishiki handing the torch. It's the board of directors. It's just us showing up and supporting each other in so many ways. So I just, again, wanted to kind of pause here and just hear some of the comments about Sangha practice, how it's been a support in each of your practices. If you find that the Sangha is a valuable jewel, as like any other jewels aren't valuable, but I mean, how has the Sangha shown up for you in your practice and in your path? If you're willing to share, that'd be greatly appreciated. Yeah, Kat, sure you.
I'd like to make a comment about when I talked with Hojo for the first time, and this was about a year ago. First of all, he had that understanding. We were talking about another matter. It's not important, but he was willing to understand me. It was a Zen issue with Matsuoka. And then he invited me to join the Sangha, to train. And it's been a really wonderful experience connecting back with Soto teaching, Buddhist geeks, a somewhat disciplined environment where people know what they're talking about. So that, but the invitation that Hojo gave me, saying, "Oh, you might want to join us," or something to that effect. That was the real love that you're talking about, that I felt and have continued to experience, with the Sangha. Thank you.
Thank you. And Katsuryu, I just have to say this. Did we lose him? I think we lost him. But Katsuryu is actually the practice leader out at the Bellevue Sangha. He is actually a direct lineage descendant from Matsuoka. He's going to be sharing that, some more of that, his experience with Matsuoka in our upcoming retreat. But it's been a pleasure to get to know the Bellevue Sangha. There he comes back. And just to how that kind of his work with Matsuoka inspired his Sangha. So I think we see with Silent Thunder and see with some of our affiliate organizations, that's one of the gifts of COVID. It's enabled us to be able to get to know our extended Sangha and realize the breadth and depth of what our practitioners, our teachers, our other Sangha members bring to our Sangha. And Katsuryu, you might not have been on, but I was just sharing with them about the Bellevue Sangha and how you'll be talking about your Sangha and your experience with Matsuoka as a gift, because again, you're kind of like a lineage. You come directly from Matsuoka, and we look forward to you sharing that information with us. So we appreciate you and welcome you, and we're glad you decided to join us.
Thank you.
Awesome. I'm gonna do a time check. I'm gonna close with this. I have to say this. So as a part of Sangha practice, there are always opportunities to support the Sangha. There are virtual opportunities, outdoor work days, committee participation. We're always looking for people to join our committees, our boards, the Gasho newsletter support. So again, the Sangha is just a really great way to be able to express practice, and we so encourage that. And again, if it were not for the Sangha, we wouldn't be able to continue to do the work that we do. And thank you, that's perfect timing. And I'm gonna close with a poem from Matsuoka. It's from the Kaiusak, and on page 143, it's a Japanese poem. And probably y'all are already all familiar with. It's called Shikantaza. It says, just jump into Zazen, leap into it. Without expectation, without discovery, like jumping off a cliff. Dive into its depth. You might not reach the bottom. Have no concern if there is a bottom. Just jump in and fall down into the abyss. Just sit. Again, everyone, thank you so much for allowing us to. Hold on one second. Would you mind putting? Yep. Would you mind putting the name of that book? We'll send the name of the book out to everyone.
It's Alan Wallace's book, Attention Revolution. So Alan Wallace is the Tibetan teacher's name. He's actually American, but translated for the Dalai Lama, and he's been a teacher for a long time. But anyway, Attention Revolution.
Okay. Did everybody get that? Shake your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Read the first 30 pages, and you can just put it back on your bookshelf.
So as an extension of our Sangha practice, we are so grateful to have our member, Mumon Amy Pico, continue the tradition of being able to work with our outreach Sangha activity, the Gasho newsletter. She came and she spoke a little bit about the Gasho newsletter, asked for participation and assistance. So as we do full circle Sangha practice, we're going to end today to allow Amy Pico Mumon to speak about what's going on with the Gasho newsletter, provide updates. And again, also, this is an opportunity to do Sangha practice. So I have to lead with that, Mumon, and I'll hand the virtual ball over to you. So thank you so much for coming and giving us an update on Sangha practice of the Gasho newsletter. she's still. Muma, you there? I think she's frozen.
It's a nice smile that she froze.
Yeah,
with
she
there.
froze it with a nice smile.
Looks nice and peaceful.
We'll give her a moment to.
So natural.
She does, right? We'll give her a moment to be able to hopefully get back online. But again, if folks are interested in volunteering and supporting the Gasho newsletter, again, reach out to us at ASZCinfo at gmail.com. Yeah, I have to say .com or .org because I'm always like getting my websites with my emails mixed up. Go ahead.
I'll just do a little introduction to the Gasho newsletter. I think most people know what it is, but it's a prison outreach newsletter that started here a long time ago. I don't know how many years ago, longer than a decade ago. And there were some people here that were running it, and a lot of inmates realized that this Gasho newsletter was providing information on Zen, and began writing us. And then the people that were running it sort of disappeared, and I'm not sure I ever met them, but I know that when I was living at the Zen Center, we just kept getting 5 letters every week from inmates written to the Gasho newsletter requesting information or to be back on the list that they thought was still going on. And I tried to start it back up a couple of times. And I think we got one mailing. We had to update the mailing list because it kept changing, and we finally got it updated, sent one letter out, and then kind of dropped the ball. And Amy picked it back up again. Muman picked it back up again and updated the list again with all of the boxes and boxes of letters that were here that continued to arrive. And they sent out a newsletter, which I'm holding in my hand. I don't know what the date is on it, but earlier, I guess at the end of, when was it? When did it go out?
This is like May. So it's been like toward the end of March earlier.
Yeah. And there were plans to send out another, like a second one this year, like later in the summer. So she's going to give us an update on that. But she has been instrumental in getting it going again, has applied and gotten us nonprofit mailing status, which makes a big difference because we're mailing to lots and lots of people. So it's expensive. The online option isn't an option in prison. So the only way they're going to get information is by, writing something and stuffing an envelope and sending it to them. And the thing, I work in prisons, the thing that's, I guess that was weighing on me before we got it going again is these people that are incarcerated, they have jobs and they make about 25 cents an hour. So they're working for 2 hours just to be able to avoid a stamp to send us a letter, and then we were just sort of sitting on them. So many bows to Muman, Amy, for getting it going again, because that was something. Hey, good.
we filled the space in the meantime. We were showing the Gasho newsletter, and then as well that we have a Gasho newsletter section on our website for updates as well, but we're going to hand it over to Muman. She's back.
Seriously got kicked off like the minute that you introduced me. So the first thing that I'm going to say since this happened is that I would like to request additional time the next time that we have a community meeting, preferably more at the beginning. The reason being is that, couple things. Since I'm short on time, I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible.
No. Hey, Muman, you got 10 minutes, so you don't have to rush. Take your time. It's all good. You're good.
But the first thing is, one of the things that I learned ages ago when you're trying to win hearts and minds to a project is the KIT method, the KIT method. Not the KIT, the KLT method. Know, like, and trust. Many of you don't know me. I came in the middle of the pandemic. So this is also one of the things that makes it hard, is that there has, in many ways, when you're trying to recruit people need to know you. So I'm gonna, hopefully the next time I have more time, not today, give you a little bit more about me. The other is like. You need to like the project or the person that you're signing up for. Well, you don't know me. You don't know really if you're going to like maybe doing this project. So I'm going to give you some more information that might compel you to like this project, even if you don't know if you like me yet. And then the third is trust. You need to be able to trust that this is something that is worth your while, because by nature, we all have in us selfishness towards our time. And I totally get that. My time is precious. Your time is precious. However, this is a boots on the ground operation. This is one of the few things that is not digital that we do for Sangha and that we do for people in prisons all over the country. So it is actually a service project that requires physical work, which means that we have 3 needs for the Gassho newsletter if it is to be sustainable for the next and any future issues that come out. If we do not have these things, the newsletter will be paused. The first one is, of course, finances, but really the financial piece is very small, and that is not material other than your funds. We're looking at around a $200 mailing. This is based off of last time's mailing, which was around 680 pieces of mail that we mailed, 680. We're looking at about a projected 1 to 200 additional pieces we'll be mailing in our next mailing. That's going to put us around the 8 to 900 piece mail. That's 900 pieces of mail we are projected to put out in our next one. That's a lot of work. So we need money for that mail to go out. We also need money for a printer. Preferably a printer that can stay at the Zen Center. We need something to put out this physical material that we're putting in the mail. I did it all myself the first time. I have a fine printer here, but it is not going to last another 700 to 800 pieces. So we need to have a nice big, if somebody wants to donate one, buy one for us, that'd be awesome. Printers are cheap. So those are our financial needs. The second, which is also a material need, for those of you that are artists, if not, I'm going to hit up Inga again, is we already have requests from our inmates for images. We're already getting requests for images. I can, of course, go on the internet for those. But I find that this is a nice way to give back if you have that proclivity. If you have a proclivity towards art, this is something that is already being requested by the inmates in their letters because they want pictures to go along with the spaces that they have, right? I mean, they're trying to do with what we have. And the only thing that we can give them is a piece of paper. That's it, right? We can't mail them materials other than a letter. So that's another need is images or art. And then the most important is actual physical people. So I am calling out all of our relatively local people. I know we have people from, all over the place, but we need local people who are willing to physically do some of the manual labor related to folding paper, putting paper in envelopes, sorting those, possibly even learning what it's like to go to the post office and mail a bulk mailing. That's a fun process. I've now gone through it. But I'd really love somebody who would also want to learn how to do it. This is a big job, is what I'm trying to say. This is a big job, and it's better if it's divided. So I'm looking for about 4 to 5 people. If we're looking at about, I'm going to say an 800 piece mailing for the next one, our target is September. So if we do not have the materials or the funding, if we do not have the volunteers, we can just push it back, right? That's the nice thing about this practice is that I'm not stuck on anything because we need to have the support to actually get this done. So we're looking at about 4 to 5 people within the Atlanta metro area who are willing to do this physical work. You can come, we'll set it up to where you can take it home, fold them at home. I don't care. But the point is we need that physical help. So those are the really practical things that I wanted to say in the time that I have. But I had this really beautiful, wanted to read letters and tell you stories and make it kind of fun and squishy so that your heartstrings will get pulled a little bit. So I'm hoping maybe I'll do that next time. And I will say that, in the letters that I've opened up so far since our last mailing, a lot of the people are just asking for mail. They're not sending us deep questions. They're not sending us a lot of meat, so to speak. I do have a few of those, but really for the most part, they just want support, right? These are people that have either been just now discovering Buddhism as they're incarcerated. These are individuals that maybe even have a long-standing practice, but they don't have resources. So from a practicality standpoint, you know, as many of you may or may not know, in the prison system, most of the libraries are very sorely resourced with Buddhist materials, right? This is one of the common complaints we get from most inmates. I don't have materials. I don't have materials. Well, we can't mail materials. We don't have the capacity for that. So this is our way of giving that to them. And I think that's really beautiful. You know, they get a piece of mail, which many of them cherish. And on top of that, they're getting something that they wouldn't already have because of the lack of resources in most of the prisons. I do want to close with one letter though, because letters are a way to tug at your heartstrings. Do we have time?
Yeah, you got time.
Okay. So I like this one. And it's written on an old-fashioned typewriter. I don't know why that was just like so exciting to me. All right. So this was someone from Washington State. Thank you for your update on your group's ability to do for the prisoners at this time. If you still are able to mail me the Gasho newsletter, I would much enjoy that, which we will. Can you please send me some Buddhist images I can put with my current altar on my desk? Such images keep me reminded of the mindfulness and positive energy we all as living beings keep inside our core of this living experience. I feel like that sentence could just be a poem. A question I have that you might be able to shed some light on for me is, and this will be a question that we'll probably give to Hojo or even one of you other, anybody else who might feel like they want to answer it. Why do I deal with such anger and negative energy inside my core towards others that have hurt me in the recent and long past? When I live with the view, forgiveness is the key to the positive life path and true focus. It's really a struggle for me, as there are only a very few who I hold such feelings towards, and yet found a way to let it go and move forward with living my life journey of doing good for others through kindness. I hope you can help me with this. So these are the types of inquiries that we're receiving, and I hope that as we continue to put out the call, that some of you will indeed answer. We already have some wonderful volunteers. Suki, of course, helps me with updating the database, which in and of itself is a part-time job. So thank you. We're kind of tag teaming it because not one person can't just do that job. That's actually like a two-person job, just that. And I have some people who live a distance away who are helping me with designing the newsletter. So we do have a small little group of people that have already helped with the first one, but we need more to keep this going. So Gasho, and thank you.
And I just have to share with you, Muman, we'll have a priest in residence, an Ango, in September. So that's one good, well, that's free labor. And I will chart you and give you the next community discussion all together next time. So you can have that slot, and I'll let you know the date to make sure that works for your schedule. But we are so grateful for your support and your practice of leading this. It is such a valuable example of how the Sangha supports the wider Sangha. So we look forward to the update, and we will definitely support you in this practice opportunity. And again, just thank you so much for being willing to be the practice leader in this particular effort. Gasho, to you, Muman. And we are right at the top of the hour. And of course, I can't let you go without letting you know what's upcoming for the week, because we have an exciting week coming up. We have the retreat starting this Thursday, from the Thursday evening through next Sunday. It is, again, the Vows in Bloom retreat. It's our yearly precepts retreat, and it's living the vows through challenging times. So again, looking forward to hearing and participating in that Sangha activity. As always, we have our normal practice opportunities throughout the week. It will change from Thursday through Sunday, but the Sunday, next Sunday is going to be the discussion panel from the retreat. We'll have 5 people that Hojo will be talking with, and also we'll be doing the celebration of Hanamatsuri, the Buddha's birthday. So we'll have hopefully a lot of flowers and a lot of things. So again, not required for you to attend all the sessions, but attend what you can. It is a virtual. We will be recording those sessions. It again is a practice offering being offered to you to support your practice and also your precepts. And again, as always, we appreciate those folks that are supporting us and sustaining us. And if you are not one of those, we invite you to become a part of that group, because it allows us to continue to offer these practice opportunities within our community. And again, happy Mother's Day. We are so grateful for everyone that showed up today and continue to practice. And we'll go ahead and do our closing. If Suki or one of our support in the back will lead our bells for us.
Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable.
I vow to realize it. Again, everyone, have a great, safe rest of the week. Gasho, thank you again for showing up. We look forward to seeing you at the retreat or next Sunday.